This is episode 215 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Dion Morales, and today I'm joined by Marcel. Tell me about the dace of our many lives, Manzano.
Up to 4 lives with Cutthroat.
Ryan, sad Roger Staniszewski.
Sad reacts only for the droids and the many friends that they once had with networked calculations.
And Will, now this is hyperspace, Hagewood.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, so today, let's go through some quick announcements. If you didn't hear, if you were living under a rock, the winner of the Lamu Galactic Championship Qualifier was one and only the Marcel Manzano. We'll get more into that in a bit, but we got to give him the props. He won it fair and square. Before we go too far, though, obligatory hashtag rigged in the chat, please. Thank you very much. Also, we did something kind of on the down low. We didn't announce it big during the stream. We just kind of put it out in a couple places to get feelers out and see the reaction. Seems like those of you who participated in our Lamu bracket challenge had a good time, and this is something that we're going to be doing from now on. Having a bracket available for you guys to fill out for the cut going into a day 2 and basically set up some type of prize for it. Completely free to be a part of it. It's just something that we're doing for fun. And the way we're scoring it, for every first round win that you guess correctly, it's 10 points. So this time would be the top 16, 10 points. Top 8 is 20 points, and then 30, and then 40 for the final. And the winner of our very first GSP Galactic Championship Bracket Challenge is Nathan Phil with a total of 200 points. They guessed 7 of the 8 top 16 results correct. Okay, that got them ahead. They got 3 out of the 4 top 8 matches correct, and then they got the final correct. Like, it was a super solid bracket. Super solid bracket. So with 200 points there, thank you to everybody who did participate. We did have an honorable mention for Sith Holocron with 180 points, and it was that first round, the top 16, that bit him. So it was super fun, and we look forward to doing it again. If you think it's a good idea and you like it, let us know, and we'll make sure to make it bigger and better. We're looking at a couple of different ways to be efficient with it, with scoring, because this time we basically just gave you guys a picture, but that's something for us to figure out at a later date. And now we need to go. We went from happy to not so happy. Team USA falls to Spain 5-2. It's a bye week for Team USA, so they got a week to lick their wounds and bring up their confidence again. Marcel, give us the update.
Yeah, so we lost 5 games to 2. 2 games were I don't know how many games. I know Will's game was a very one-sided game in our favor. The rest of the games, I think, were pretty close. I know my game, which was the tail end, so it was my game was the last game to finish, so my game was just for whatever. It came down to the last dice roll. I know Doug's game with the first order list also came down to the last dice roll. I heard Matt's game came to the last dice roll, and I think our Empire list that I think we all thought we had a good advantage. I think we just got a bad initial engagement, which just created like a really bad domino effect. But I'd like to say that we got Carsoned this week. So because we were I would say we were clearly the favorites, even if they're the defending champions, just by like what the popular opinion was. And I'm not just talking about American popular opinion, but also like the European space. You know, they were doing their like, oh, this list versus that list. They were saying, you know, U.S. is the favorite. And then we were instead of coming from behind, we were typically winning at the end of every match, or we were in the position to win at the end of every match, and we didn't. So we pulled, not we, they pulled a Carson on us often enough to take the series 5-2. And oddly enough, Carson is the only one, Carson is the other one who started off ahead and ended up ahead. So we need Carson to start losing more and win it at the end so we can get back in our rhythm. So Carson, I'm ready for the heart attacks again. Bring it.
Yeah, he was the winner of the first game that got played this week. It was recorded and streamed here on GSP, so if you're a Twitch subscriber, you can watch it now. Our YouTube fam, that'll be posted here in the next week or so. Will, from your...
Wait, I just want to say one more thing, too.
Yeah.
Also, there was like a post that had got by Paul Heaver, by Papa Heaver, we call him. So there was a post by Papa Heaver saying something about like sportsmanship and all that. For those of you who saw the game, my game, there was a misdial set due to some. Well, there was a misdial set. There was some, PTS, me and TTS, and we got booted, and we came back. I guess the opponent swapped the styles, and it took us a while to figure it out. And then once we figured it out, we're like, oh, let's correct it, but let me go tell the team. So I went on Discord to tell the team, and some people saw that break in like not fixing it right away as like, oh, you're trying to like rules lawyer it and say like, no, you're not allowed to switch it or something like that. Anyway, that was a frame of thought by some people. So that's for starters not appreciated, but then it got sorted out. It's like, play nice, be nice. And I echo Papa Heaver's advice in saying, like, just be nice. It doesn't matter if it's online, in person, if it doesn't matter if it's at Worlds or at your casual night. When you play, just play nice. Unless you're around D, which D doesn't allow you to play nice, even if you want to play nice.
Because that's the rules. No niceties allowed. Yeah, I call those bonchincharos, people who talk without knowing information. Bonchincharos, I don't know. That's what I've always called them. But anywho, Will, from your perception,
What do you mean about
this week, the Team
this
USA
week?
this week? Yeah.
Oh man, we this is why I said it once we started losing a couple games that our streak of luck had gone away. Not that we were getting lucky with our wins, but definitely some favorable dice and some good turns. Were able to get us a lot of wins before. Unfortunately, the luck was, unfortunately, it had to be Spain the week that we had our luck ran out. But obviously, Spain played very good, and to beat us 5-2, obviously. So
Yeah.
I wish it would have been against somebody else, and we would have been able to beat Spain. But they'll continue on undefeated.
Ali said something yesterday that I happen to agree with. He said, if you're gonna drop a match, drop the match that you are that people think you're gonna drop. If you're gonna drop a match against the best team. Don't drop a match against the other teams. So I'll go with that. So now, I think we're still in the driver's seat. We're the only us and Spain are the only ones that have less than 2 losses. They have none. We have 1. So we're still in the driver's seat.
What about Hungary?
They're 2-1, or 2-2, 2-1 or 2-2.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. They also have 1 loss, but we've got the win count on them, and we've got the 6-1 on them. So
That's fair.
I would like to say that I got the chance to watch most of Will's game on stream, and when you put a Kylo in a position to get range 1 by Fenrau and Bosk because you went over a gas cloud by misjudging your
Yeah.
coordinated barrel roll link boost, you're gonna have a bad time.
Oh yeah, my opponent, he was very upset with that maneuver. He thought it was going to be the right call to get out of that 180-degree arc, even if it did cost him the gas cloud and whatnot. But it was just, I think me coordinating Finn and not doing some sort of like reposition or boost or something like that, the linked action with Finn, just threw him off. And wasn't sure. I think he started to second guess what he thought was actually on Finn's style.
All right. Well, the Team USA got a week off this week, but we're still going to be trying to get you guys some XCC games this Wednesday and Saturday from other teams around the world, so looking forward to that. Now, we're going to go ahead and go into our main topic of the day, and that is discussing the top 16 list from the Lamu Galactic Championship Hyperspace Qualifier. Now, before we go to that, I want to let you know that this segment is brought to you by our patrons. If you want to be a part of our largest group of supporters, go ahead, head to patreon.com/Gold Squadron, and thank you so much for everybody for your support. A reminder to our current patrons, the Alphabet Squadron set is going to start getting packed up in the next couple days, and anybody who becomes a patron from today going on into the next month, you're going to qualify for our next set, which is the Shadow Squadron set. We will talk some more about that later. But let's go ahead. Let's jump into the top 16. Top 16. Here was our bracket. This is the matchups that happened. This is how they broke down. But we're going to go specifically into the list here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the factions for this event. Ryan, go ahead and break down our faction breakdowns for the event.
So overall, we saw 21 Separatists, 12 Republic, 12 Rebel, 26 Scum, 14 Imperial, 12 Resistance, and 18 First Order. Surprisingly, all of the quote good guy factions, the Republic, the Resistance, and the Rebels, all lowest equal at 12 only. Even with stuff like Hera and a lot of those new RZ1s and the Hera Garvin combination. Also, all the 7B Jedi Knights doing so well. Yeah, not too surprising to see Resistance that low, but to see stuff like First Order taken higher than even the Empire and all those others I just listed, surprising to me at least. And then when you look at the top cut, everything just evened out almost across the board. It's pretty impressive, actually. 3 Separatist, 2 Republic, 2 Rebel, 3 Scum, 3 Imperial, 2 Resistance, and First Order left with just the 1. But all factions represented in a moderately equal manner in the top cut.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, chat said you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Roll it back from when you started.
Yep. What was I saying? So, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into our top 16. We will start at the top of the list with our first seed, our winner, and then head down to 16. So with the win of the event, Marcel Manzano, go ahead and break down your own list.
All right, we're starting from there. Okay. So I brought a hyperspace list with Bosk, Cutthroat, Gamut Key, Zamwell, Wessel, Greedo, contraband, cybernetics, and hull upgrade. So it's basically the same boss that Will is flying, plus additional toys of cutthroat, contraband, and hull. You have a good ship. Make sure you give it more toys. Then replaced either the paylob or the cannon with Dace bow and arm. The Dace is D-Ace. So when you spell Dace from now on, you have to put a little D apostrophe and then capital Ace, bow and arm. And Kayla's making fun of me. And then Protector Gleb with thermal detonators. No, Dace bow and arm with Protector Gleb, thermal detonators, and Moldy Crow. And then I also brought Tel Travera with Cutthroat, Proton Torpedoes, Ion Cannon, False Transponder Codes, and Hull Upgrade, because I finally caved and said, okay, Tel can have a Hull Upgrade. Rounding out at 200 points. So it's a 4-4-4 list. I don't know if you guys want to talk about the choices. There's reasons for the choices, but I don't know if you guys want
mean, since you are the champion and you're here, go into your choices, please, and thank you.
I'm curious to you and William were
okay.
I believe commentating, right?
Yeah.
And I think I shared the list with everyone on Friday before I flew it.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of want to. I know why I chose it, but just I was wondering, like, what did you guys think? Like, because part of why I chose it was honestly the memes, just like Dace and Tel. I mean, that was part of the reason, but there was also like a logical reason behind that, other than just I want to be silly and have some fun.
So do you want us to take like that initial guess? So I've like seen the least amount of this.
Not the guess. It's like the breakdown as
the analysis.
Like the way that we're gonna break down Ethan Williams' list and everybody else's lists. Yeah.
All right, Will. Let's start with you. What you got?
Well, I'm not surprised it did so well. You have Bosk, who's already hitting so hard with that party bus crew. You got Gamet Key holding tokens, Zam Wessel getting free locks and bonus attacks, and Greedo crew getting that very essential crit that Bosk can split. And then Tel is just essentially you discourage people from shooting at Tel, which I think is super funny. Because if they kill Tel, it just reappears somewhere else. And while that, you can argue like, oh well, you just go off and kill 2 whole health afterwards. That's a different situation where in the end game, if you're looking to score points to get up on this list, they already have Dace or something like that, or Bosk is like limping away, and you're trying to score some more points on this list. And you look at Tel and you realize that killing Tel doesn't score you any points. They have to find them somewhere else. I think is very interesting. I am surprised on the Tel upgrades. They don't have any sort of crew on it. And you reached for the hull upgrade on Bosk. Cutthroat makes sense to me. I guess the question I had was more of the thermal detonators. Did you get some good use out of thermal detonators and Cutthroat as well? Because you have limited ship count, did Cutthroat always matter?
Okay, so Cutthroat mattered, I would say, in almost every match. I'm saying almost because in the final, none of the ships died. Actually, in a lot of them, none of the ships died. But it mattered in every time that I lost enough points to have a ship die. It mattered significantly. The crew, the thermals, and the hull upgrade on Bosk were better for me than a crew. I looked at the crew options. I could have done something like. Is all 3 options available? Maybe Kira. I'm not Kira. I'm torpedoing, so I don't need the Kira. Contraband, for 1 point higher, not really. So most of the time, Dace was coordinating Tell, not Bosk, because during the Alpha Strike, everybody is afraid of Bosk for that Alpha, but Bosk is really just clearing shields so that Proton Torpedo could hit really hard. So you're doing the target lock, false transponder code something out of there, hit clear shields with Bosk, and then delete them with the Proton Torpedo at the end, and then Dace will just take a pot shot wherever it's, whatever. If it survived, try to kill it. If it didn't, you just start on a new target. The So yeah, I never really felt like Tell needed one, and uh, the thermals were there because Dace is very unprotected. He doesn't, with Paylob stealing tokens, so the ships are usually not modified or not, or single modified. With cannons doing cannon things, not taking shots. Dace is just a sitting duck. It's basically just a hawk, a 5 health, 2 agility ship. And even in the final, when Ethan went through the rocks and came at me, when he came at me with Zam, and then he went down between the 2 debris and was going to start chasing the hawk. The only reason he didn't was because that bomb was sitting there. Had he boosted to take the shot on Dace, he would have ate a bomb, and he didn't want to do that. And then the following turn, he didn't want to take 2 bombs, so that's why he disengaged to go down to the bottom of the board. So those bombs alone were just there to say, don't chase me, don't chase the Dace, and it worked perfectly. I think the cutthroats and the contraband were probably the MVP for me for the entire weekend, because Dace typically ended up dying at some point because Tell is, like you said, it's a bad target. You spend a whole lot to basically get 35 points. You can spend 60 minutes to get 35 points, and then he'll just show up in the opposite corner. And if you want to go kill Ace again, kill Tell again, that means you have to put your back to Bosk. So you don't want you. So that means you're gonna get. It's kind of like Morello, and trying to kill Bosk. I mean, you fly Bosk. At that point he's getting his free locks. He's doing everything that Bosk wants to do with Zam. So you kill the coordinator, and the coordinator is real cheap. He was only 50 points or 52 points. So you're going through fire to get to the cheapest ship. And then when the cheapest ship dies, I made sure to use my contrabands early and my proton torpedoes early. And now having a Bosk with double contraband, being able to stop and basically just say, pick a corner and say, I'm going to stay here for multiple turns. Stace is going to die, and I'm still going to stay here. And in one situation, I even got 4 torpedoes off of Tell. Like that. That's what won me the game. Shot 2 torpedoes. Dace died. Shot another torpedo. Bosk died, and then finished the game by shooting a 4th torpedo.
All right. Well, I got one last question about Cutthroat. Did you ever the ability to recharge Tell's charge? Did you ever get a double zombie Tell?
No, I didn't. And the only reason that I didn't is because Tell only died once or twice in the entire event, and he didn't die. He only got halved once, except the last game against Joel Springle, in round 6. Tell was still alive, but it wasn't going well for me, and I just said, I conceded, so he didn't actually die. Instead of running around for the next 20 minutes, I just conceded, but never got the opportunity. That's what I wanted. I mean, that's what I wanted. Okay. You can have a total of 16 health if everything works out well with him, but that never worked out. It was always crazy. It was always proton torpedoes and and Contraband Cybernetics that got the benefit.
And the other thing I want to point out here, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Dace the ace." One of the things we identified when we were talking in our chat beforehand, and now we're going to talk about it out loud, is Dace Bonearm is the cheapest platform that makes sense for Protectorate Gleb. I know that the pilot says Dace Bonearm, but it's actually Protectorate Gleb, and then Dace is along for the ride. Like, let's be honest, right? Like, Dace Bonearm happens to be the cheapest hawk in hyperspace, and that's why it's out there.
But I'm gonna, in hyperspace, yes. I think in extended, he becomes a bigger. He becomes more useful in extended because you have a lot more large base ships. You're thinking about Tell with the ion, and you can ionize them with a single shot. Yeah, that's good. But a lot of the, if you think about it, with Bosk throwing a lot of crits and all of that, there's a potential to get ion or whatever we call it, the power regulators, disabled power regulators. If you can get that on that crit on a medium or large base ship, that means you have the choice. You have the choice to say this is the turn you're ionized. So if they're facing in a good way, you're like, okay, I'm gonna let you just take that one ion. Next turn, they start preparing to do the K turn so they can face the right direction. The turn 2, you say, okay, now I'm gonna ionize you. So it makes that disabled. I know it's very niche, but just the ability to be able to tell someone out of 3 turns, like, I'm gonna ionize you. Any of those 3 turns you want, you don't know which one it is. Just know that whenever you're in the worst position,
you're going to take advantage of it. Yeah. Well, and then also you brought an ion cannon too, so you could also do stuff like that. So I'm not saying that the ability is useless, but people have historically preferred Torkoal, Paylob, and now Kanan for their abilities, which maybe what we're saying now is that Dace has a place in the meta, right? Like there's a place for him, and I think what's making his place worth it right now is currently his points. Because I honestly think that if the points went up on Dace and he ends up being the same as who's the one above him in points?
Tapuk, I think, or one of those.
Maybe
he's at Dace Bonearm's 31 base, Gamut Key's 34, but everyone takes Gamut Key.
Gamut Crew, yeah.
Kind of go up to Pusk, who is 36. That's 5-point jump just from Dace to Pusk. I think it is also worth noting, Dace is also I4, which with the rest of your ships in the list, everything's moving at the same rate, and you can choose the order of operations when you want to coordinate before or after one of your friends move.
Yeah, having the same initiative is the best way to guarantee actions, because if you have Cannon moving first and Bosk is in the way, you're just going to bump. So now you have the ability to move Bosk out of the way first, and then do everything in any order you want. And also in some situations, like I said, when I wanted to park Bosk, I would use Contraband and park him. Shoot a torpedo with Tell in the back, then hop over Bosk, Gamut Key, all the stuff, and then bump again to stay another one, and then stop again, and then there's your 3 turns with modded Bosk and in the same spot. So having that flexibility to move at the same initiative and choose who goes when and who gets the actions is really good. Not for this list. It's really good for any list. So anytime you have ships of the same initiative, you're always going to be at an advantage when it's time to move.
So I think the question in the back of everybody's head is, have you, with this win, given Dace a place in the future meta? Well, there's no way to know. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to move on. But Dace Bonearm might be coming out to play. At least people are going to try. Like whenever there's a list that wins or does really well in an event, things start to evolve and kind of shape around it. And I think we'll wait for the top 4 to get to the point I'm about to make. But we have another pattern emerging here that I think you guys will see. Well, let's continue here with Ryan and Ethan Williams' lists.
Ethan bringing the ever infamous Zamgo, the Django Zam, running Django with Treacherous, carrying Count Dooku on Django, thermal detonators, false transponder codes, hull upgrade, and then Zam with Treacherous, thermal detonators, false transponder codes, hull upgrade, opting for no crew on one of the fire sprays for the 189-point list being an 11-point bid. There's a strong argument to stick with that. That bid means you're moving after probably everything, unless there's another I6 list, but then Django gets moved after. I've seen more of these adjustments moving Count Dooku to Django. I don't know for sure if there's a right or wrong answer. I've seen arguments for both sides. If any of you guys feel like you have a strong opinion one way or the other, I'd be curious to hear it. But it's obviously one of the strongest lists in the game, hyperspace or extended, and being that the fact that it can bid that high and be that effective tells you that a lot of that costs not enough.
Maybe one of the thoughts of putting Count Dooku on Django is increasing his effectiveness, because Zam by herself already has a lot of output, damage output. Sometimes Dooku is just like quadrupling down on how good she is, and you can try to, with Dooku, you could shift over some of that effectiveness over to Django.
Yeah, in most cases, I know when I look at most Django Zam lists that don't have Count Dooku crew on Django, you usually consider Django's offense to be pretty average because there's no additional modifiers beyond just focusing and the first turn of engagement taking advantage of those false transponder codes and locking. But after that, it's just the tricks of being a fire spray with thermal detonators and false transponder codes at I6.
What were we going to say, Will?
Oh, I was just mentioning the combination of between Django's ability and then Dookuing a blank on the defender's defense of dice, or even offense for that matter, just any of their dice, because Django works offense and defense, right? If you're attacking Django, he modifies the eyeball to blank. I believe it's both ways.
While you defend or perform a primary attack, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so essentially you can double modify, instead of thinking about double modifying your own defense or your own dice, Django could, when appropriate, he could double modify the opponent's dice. Change your evade, or change your 2 eyeballs into double blanks by calling the Dooku and then Django ability. But I think I agree with Dion. It makes him more powerful because you don't have Lone Wolf and a couple other things that Extended have. I think in hyperspace it is the right call.
And then most people tend to always focus on Zam because they know it's like the quick draw effect, right? The double shot potential. You want to limit how often that could happen in a game. So you put Dooku on Django, that theoretically will be the ship that lasts longer, even though it is worth more points. So an opponent should be trying to track that ship down, but you have an I6 with an 11-point bid. That's a fire spray with boost. So have fun.
One of the other thoughts I had here, I'm sorry, something I wanted to throw in. I remember there was a newer listener who wanted us to clarify a couple of things. Marcel's squad is a scum and villainy squad, by the way. And this was a separatist squad with Django and Zam flying those fire sprays. We'll go ahead and take a look at Connor Holmes' list here with the Galactic Empire.
All right. Connor Holmes is rocking 6 TIE Barons of the Empire. Those are the V1 I3s with no force. They're all rocking Disciplined, the new upgrade that allows them to get a focus, or it's not focus. Don't remind me. It's target lock or barrel roll. After a friendly ship dies, it then has 2 tracers and 4 proton rockets in the squad. The discipline combos very well with the linked action, being able to barrel roll into a red focus. If the Baron happened to take an evade, reached for a target lock, bumped, and you thought that, oh, well, I won't shoot at it because it doesn't have a rocket. All of a sudden, it barrel rolls into a focus, and then another one shoots a tracer missile, and now it's got a double modified 5 dice attack out of nowhere. So very deadly, but certainly has its flaws. If you're not getting those bullseyes, so we saw it on stream against the fire sprays, and if it misses the bullseyes, if it can't take advantage of that discipline, the list kind of falls apart. Connor Holmes obviously doing a great job getting into the top 4, confirming the V1 bias people were having, as it being the only swarm to fly in hyperspace.
Okay, so next we're moving on to Jeremy Betch bringing a Galactic Republic list. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Eta-2 with no upgrades, none at all, and then 3 of the Jedi Knights, the Delta 7 Aether Sprites with 7B configuration. So we did get to see Jeremy play this squad a little bit. I mean, he's basically taking what has been a staple of hyperspace, which is the Delta 7Bs, and trading out one of those Jedi Knights. People have been flying 4 of them for Obi-Wan Kenobi. You get a little bit extra initiative, which of course has its advantages, being able to move after ships. And then you also have Obi-Wan's ability, being able to, you know, trade that force for a focus is really, really solid. Obviously did really well bringing the Republic to top 4. One of the things that we did see in his play, though, once in a while, is not always using Obi-Wan's ability, which kind of, some people have different schools of thought on it. There are times where if you've gotten in trouble, you've had to spend the force, and now you have maybe 1. I think both Will and I are in that school of thought where it's like, if you can just trade that force for a focus, you just do it, because it's always better than 1. There's another school of thought that says, but what if you need, if you want to regenerate the force, which I get, but you know, this is a 3-hull ship. If you needed more than 1 focus result, you die, right? Right? You know, on defense specifically. So we want to be clear there. But overall, really cool list. Obviously, lots of maneuverability there. If you're not familiar with this ship, I would definitely take a look at it. There's a Jedi Knight hanging out with Obi-Wan Kenobi. But great ships, and if you're into the Republic, it is a great way to jump in. You know that the list is good, and it's simple because there's not a bunch of upgrades. You just fly, right? And of course, you do have those fine-tuned controls and intuitive controls as well. Maybe that's one thing that could make this, that gives this list a little bit more of a difficult rating, is the combination of fine-tuned controls and intuitive controls, right? Because the Jedi Knights get to post position. Obi-Wan has to pre-position. It's a little bit different mental space there. But overall, great job by Jeremy Betch.
So I would like to note that most people would see Obi-Wan in this probably taking Predator, right? 2 points. You have a 2-point bid, mostly solid. I think people are starting to say, if they're bringing predominantly I3 ships, they're trying to go over 2, because if we look at these Barons, they're always at that 198, and they don't want to be stuck getting out-aced by 6 ships where 4 of them have prockets. So we're starting to see people try and make sure that they're at 197 or below.
All right, well, let's keep it rolling. Let's toss it to Ryan. Talking about V1s, what did Joel Springle bring to the party?
It's deja vu. We have the standard 6 Barons of the Empire, all with discipline, 2 Tracers, 4 Prockets. 198, just like we had Connor Holmes have earlier. So, curious, let me throw this out. So if you're starting to see everything outbidding these guys, right? Do you try and take a couple disciplines off, say the tracer users, and just keep it on the procket guys? Or do you say, well, I'm getting outbid, but what if I get a 5th procket? You could drop both of the disciplines off the tracers and swap the 1 tracer from one of them into a 5th procket. So you have 1 tracer, 5 prockets, 200 points. What route would you go? Would you try and start taking a few disciplines off and go bigger bid, or would you go more prockets for more threat?
Honestly, I would go all prockets, a tracer, and no disciplines. Just
you can still fit disciplines, and actually you could.
I don't,
because you have more prockets. You could, or more prockets and less tracers. Instead of relying on the tracers or discipline trigger, you could go back to ruthless.
Yeah, the thing is, you'd be surprised how often these things end up stressed. They stress quite a bit, and I like if I were flying this right now, I would in hyperspace and extended. I would just keep the marksmanship. I think marksmanship is way better. But in hyperspace, if I was flying this, I would be flying 1 tracer, 5 proton rockets, no EPT, no talent. Just get the bid with 5, and I think what does that leave you at? This 30. That leaves you at 194, I believe. With I think that's where it's at 194. But that's where I would keep it. So just 5 prockets, or you get 5 prockets, and you can even do 6 prockets, I think, right, with nothing on there, and be at 199.
We'd have to look.
Yeah, because each one is 28 plus 5, 33 times. So it'd be somewhere right there, yeah. But I would go with 1 tracer and 5 prockets.
I think what people get afraid of, though, is in that opening salvo, if somebody brought something that's over initiative 3 and just go, your tracer carrier is dead, you brought it for nothing. And that's why people like carrying, too.
And that's why I kind of like having Ruthless as a backup in that version, or still taking some disciplined.
Yeah, but it's not useless. It took, if they kill 1, I mean, you got 6 of them. You know, like they kill 1, okay, you killed 1. It's like when you're flying a droid swarm. You know, it's the cost of doing business. When you bring a swarm, ships die. Let them die.
But then you lose the utility, though. Like, why did you? If you're willing for that ship just to die in a matchup where you have a ship at initiative 4 that you're fighting against, just wiping this off, boss just comes and goes, that's dead. Let's continue the game. Why did you even spend the points on it? I think that I'm trying to get into the frame of mind of somebody who's why they're bringing 2 of them, and I think that's the reason why, is they don't want that situation where it just disappears. Or are they relying too much on having the ability to use threat tracers? So
I will say, Dion, if I'm in an engagement, I'd say, Marcel, you've flown this list a number amount of times. How often is it in first engagement when you're flying against stuff that's higher initiative than you, that you have more than 1 procket lined up? It's very rare, right?
Almost never, yeah.
So I think, Dion, in most cases, people who have the initiative and could initiative kill are going to target the ship that actually has the bullseye procket, because that is still more dangerous than the tracer hit in most cases.
Cool. Good.
Yeah, and the big baddies right now, for the most part, have that ability. Plus, the false transponder codes is an easy way of saying, you're not gonna proc it, you're not gonna proc it, you're not gonna proc it. At least during that first engagement. So, like I said, swarms are meant to die. Just let it die.
All right. All right.
You
Good.
know, I felt that all too much during the weekend. Yep, swarms are on the downturn. If you don't have disciplined in your list, or you don't have thermal detonators, I don't know if you're a viable swarm in hyperspace.
Ooh, that's a hot take there. We're gonna have to dig into that later. We're gonna have to dig into that. All right. Next, we got Sasha Wagner, which little bit first top 8 competitor. Let me give some history / insight. If you go back and watch the videos, you will actually see Sasha win this game, but then concede the game he won because he had to finish his XTC game and he couldn't finish the tournament. So basically the way it got ruled in the tournament was like, I lose my top 8 game. I decide I lose the top 8 game, and then he went and played his XTC match. So he actually like made the top 4. He was a winner. But just want to kind of clarify that for anybody who goes back in the histories and wonders why, because we want to keep things flexible for our people. Like, he had to go, and we didn't want to leave the spot open. So here we go. Sasha Wagner. What do we have here, Marcel?
All right, so Sasha is flying a Scum and Villainy list at 199 with Bosk, the Cutthroat, Gamut Key, Zem, Greedo, and false transponder codes instead of contraband cybernetics. Thank you. Genesis Red with Cutthroat and Proton Torpedoes. Genesis Red is the I4 Seek that when I'm just going to say she target locks somebody, you get to get the target lock plus whatever tokens are on that ship. Focus or evade tokens are on that ship. Joy Rekoff with Cutthroat, Ion Torpedoes. You are covering the screen, buddy. Okay. with Joy Rekoff with on the Fang Fighter with Cutthroat, Ion Torpedoes, and Lando, the coordinator. So it's again, it's all 4s with Bosk, and then you get multiple torpedoes with Red. You get multiple rerolls with Joy, and you get the coordinator without needing. You get the Gleb. So you said Dace was the cheapest Gleb carrier. No, Lando is the cheapest Gleb carrier because he doesn't even need Gleb.
Hardy har.
Now, I will say, I prefer on Bosk contraband over false transponder codes. False transponder codes might give you the kill early, but if you play false transponder codes right, if you guys see in the final, the first thing that I did was just target lock, waste, because false transponder codes allows the lower initiative ships to decide who's going to pop that. So I can run in at somebody that's going to be behind the cloud, or run in with somebody behind the debris or at range 3 and say, or somebody who's chasing and say, that's a useless card, because you either have to take this really bad shot against this ship at range 3 or the range 1 with whatever on you. So I believe, contraband, you control when contraband triggers. You don't control when false transponder triggers. But anyway, all I4s, Cutthroat is good, torpedoes are good, and Bosk, he does okay sometimes.
So another appearance for Bosk in this top cut. If you're not familiar with the ability, we do have it there on the screen. But basically, if you're getting that crit through, you're doing an additional damage. And extra damage equals probably a little bit closer to winning your game. Really solid list. Go ahead.
For the audio listeners, just for clarifying, Bosk, while you perform a primary attack after the neutralize result step, you may spend 1 crit result, add 2 hit results.
Bam. Bam. Now, one thing that we did see happen I'm not sure if it was Sasha's game or one of the other Bosks, which we're going to talk about that in a minute here. Blinded Pilot, worst crit for Bosk. Cannot use his ability, can't modify his dice with target locks or focus. It's bad. So if you are playing against a Bosk, Blinded Pilot, it is very good. If you're a Kylo, you might want to think about putting this on a Bosk if you're fighting against it. Most of the time we say Panic Pilot, but this might be the exception. All right, let's move on. We got Alexander Buff. Take it, Will.
All right. Alexander Buff is flying the Resistance. We need a name for this list, by the way. Snaps T70s or something like that.
I've called it the 70s heroes.
The 70s heroes. I like it. Alexander Buff. So he's running the new Timon Wexley, who can change the configurations. Doesn't necessarily have to open them, but changes your configurations of your S-foils to then get, at the start of combat, to then get a strain and a calculate. So that allows him to double modify his offense. But that ability works on all ships, or all T-70s rather, at range 0 to 3. So what you combine that with is a bunch of other T-70s who can also heavily modify their offense. You have Jess Pava, who gets rerolls for friendlies. So it can reroll up to 3 dice and then can just spend her normal focus. And then utilizing Timon Wexley can get a calculate modifier when, say, doing red maneuvers or bumping, things like that. Can always be double modifying. Nimi is one of the newer I2 T70s who can change a blank result to an eyeball result if shooting somebody who's higher initiative, so 3 and up. Combine that with a target lock action, and then they calculate from Timon's ability, very consistent. Then as well, Lieutenant Bastion, who doesn't necessarily need Timon's ability because they get free locks as long as the ship is damaged nearby, very specifically is dealt a damage card, range 1 to 2. So basically all of them combined together to where they're very consistently double or even triple modifying their offense, and it just comes in and blasts stuff. Whatever we caught an early game, I think it was not Alexander Buff, but it was the same list. We caught it round 1, and it just tore through this Republic list with all those modifications on offense.
I have had the chance to actually put some games in with this list, and between the K turn, the Talon roll, close the wings, do the move, open the wings, now I have a mod, and then Jess with rerolls with a calculate, Bastion with his ability to get that lock still with a calculate. Any of them basically have boost link to strain calculate. You know, they could boost now and still have a mod. And then going over debris clouds, there's, once you put it on the board, there's so many situations. Timon's ability is money.
Yeah, you got 7 health too. Like, you can take a strain, no big deal.
This was a really fun. This was a really tough list. He almost beat me. I got lucky and killing Timon. Timon is so surprisingly aggressive and hits so hard because the way he flew out, you guys had him on stream, I think, right? I don't know if you flew the same. I
don't think we did.
No.
We had another player flying the same thing though.
Okay. Well, I don't even know if it's the same player or not, but I played somebody that was flying this, and they fly Jess, Nimi, and Lieutenant in a block, and then bring Timon from the corner. And basically, Timon is just target lock in every turn, and target lock, calculate every turn. So he's a little mini mini Poe over there for really cheap.
He's just like all these 7B Jedi that lock and have force.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea, though he's at 1 agility after doing that because of the strength. So that's the only difference
Easy,
there.
just don't get shot.
1 agility
you go.
once.
That's right. What's worth it? All right, well, let's keep moving on. Next, we got Andrew Goldbach bringing in the Moralo Evol into the top 8 of the Lamu qualifier. Okay, so we got Moralo Evol with Cutthroat, Boba Fett crew, and Zam Wessel. We got to bring up that Boba Fett crew because I know so many people have not taken a look at that. Here we go. Boba Fett crew coming up on your screen right now. So it says, during setup, start in reserve. At the end of setup, place yourself at range 0 of an obstacle beyond range 3 of an enemy ship. So with the Zam crew and Cutthroat, and then the threat of Fen Rao and Old Tarak, you got a really aggressive Moralo that can just bail whenever you need to, and then you got to deal with these Fang fighters, and then Moralo comes back. So Andrew has been trying to get Moralo to work for a long time. Props to Andrew, by the way. I consider him a friend. Cool guy, and he's been on the hustle trying to get Moralo to work. If you're not familiar with Moralo Evol, we'll go ahead and pull that one up as well. Moralo, M-O-R, just like me. All right, Moralo Evol right there. Another YV666. At Initiative 4, you say, if you would flee, you may spend 1 charge. If you do, place yourself in reserves instead. At the start of the planning phase, place yourself within range 1 of the edge of the play area that you fled from. So you got a lot of flexibility there. And when you're in reserve, any target locks you took stay active. Now, red tokens on you stay active as well. Those don't disappear, but you can still, any progress that you did, such as charging up your Zam charges, all that's still ready to go, and then you come back into the battle. So there, Andrew Goldbach bringing another YV666 into this top 16. All right, next we got Juan Pablo Gonzalez. Take it, Ryan.
All right, Juan bringing a Separatist Alliance list, running Zam in the fire spray with Count Dooku crew, thermal detonators, false transponder codes, and hull upgrade. We have General Grievous with Impervium plating and Solus 1, standard loadout for him. And then we have Burwer Kret in the Nantex with Gravitic, Deflection, and Predator. So this is the common 3-ship hyperspace list we've seen that involves Zam, Grievous, plus a thing. And one of those common things has been Burwer Kret. You at least having Predator. I think this is one of the few times I've seen Burwer with Gravitic Deflection, though. But basically, it's been a while since I even read Gravitic Deflection. Before I say anything, I want to make sure I'm actually right on it. So Gravitic Deflection used to be like 5 or 6 points, now down to 4. While you defend, you may reroll one of your defense dice for each tractored ship in the attack arc. So remind me, does that include yourself if you're tractored? I believe it does.
Yeah, because you're being attacked. So.
Oh yeah, well you defend their attack arc. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in a way, a lot of times those defensive rerolls are kind of like having 3 agility, but without the max. You have kind of the 3 agility average because you're basically rolling 3 dice and getting rid of the worst result. Unless you get that result twice because you re-roll it. So you don't have the spike of the 3 agility if you've maintained your tractor token, but Gravitic Deflection gives you another chance to get yourself a better average.
There you go. All right. Next we have Cristobal Rigo bringing another Republic list. Marcel?
So Cristobal Riego is flying the Jedi, actually 3 Delta 7 Jedi Knights with Anakin. Instead of taking Obi, he went with baby Anakin, R2, and an advanced proton torpedo for 198 points. By the way, Cristobal, part of Team Chile, want you guys do well because you guys are playing Spain this week, so kick butt. But yeah, very solid list. It's essentially the the same thing we saw. It's same thing, different flavor that we saw in the top four. Instead of taking the naked Obi, taking Anakin with toys. That Anakin is actually, I think this one was on stream, wasn't it?
It was versus you.
Yeah, and I happen to like this better than Obi, but that's because I have a soft spot for Annie. But I mean, it stays alive longer. He is more of a nuisance, but yet you can't disregard him because you get that spike damage of 5 shots, so you can't ignore him, which means you have to kill him. But if you kill him, he's a trap, and while you're thinking of all this, you've got 3 deltas that are deltas hit kind of hard.
Hey, Will, can you hear him hedging for us about to tear into him about this game?
He's like, oh, you really gotta look after him.
Man,
I'm glad you admit that he's a trap, Marcel, because I think you fell into it during your guys' games.
Agreed.
Oh, that I attacked him a lot?
I attacked him at the beginning.
Yeah, because he was the only one that was moving after my full list, and I just didn't want that torpedo. So
there was a lot of fear there.
Torpedo.
We could sense it. Yeah, during the match, like Will and I, like we took off the commentator, and we were just there, just like smacking our heads, like, "What are you doing? Stop attacking Anakin!" It was great. It was great. You got the dub in the end.
Anakin died at the end, so
true.
He did that.
True. But you know what? Viewers, go watch the game. Go watch the game when it's up. You'll see and hear some of our frustrations with Marcel with target selection that happened a couple of times. But you know what? He got the W. So in the end, are we wrong? I don't know. But it worked out. All right, let's keep it going. Dread Champ. What do we got here, Will?
All right, Dread Champ bringing the Republic Alliance, the feared Heratani. That's Hera in the A-Wing. This one has proton rockets mixed with Garvin Dreas in the X-Wing. The list also has Jake Farrell with Thread Tracers, Shara Bay in the A-Wing, and Wedge Antilles in the A-Wing as well. The combination of Jake being able to hand out Hera, essentially all these people love the focus action. Shara needs it when she spends her locks. Wedge is normally one of the primary targets in the list, so really likes having, or also likes to modify his dice with a target lock. So really enjoys the support there. But being able to give Hera a focus, then she can come up and either target lock for that proton rocket or evade and be able to hand out multiple tokens to the whole squad. Is just the classic Rebel synergy at work here. And I am surprised with the proton rockets on Hera. She's normally one of the first ships to be targeted in this list, but is I6, has the support from Jake to give her a focus if you set it up right, and obviously has worked very well.
All right, next we move on to another Rebel list here with a bit of a different flavor. We had Rob Pettit bring 4 of the Red Squadron veteran T-65s. Those are the Initiative 3 X-Wings, all with selfless, and the S-Foils and Derek Clivian with XX23 thread tracers. Let's go ahead and take a second and talk about Selfless. Selfless is a defensive upgrade that fits in that talent slot, and it reads, while another friendly ship at range 0 to 1 defends before the neutraloid's result step, if you are in the attack arc, you may suffer 1 critical damage to cancel 1 critical result. So essentially taking that critical damage and passing it around. If you have an X-Wing that has their shields down, they're about to take a crit, you could swap it to yourself between those 4 different X-Wings. So I would expect that Rob probably played in some type of formation. Could have been a 2x2 or all 4 together. And it looks like just this list comes in at 200 points, so Derek just kind of fits in there nicely. Derek Clivian in the A-Wing as well, with the ability, after you acquire or spend a lock, you may remove 1 red token from yourself. It's just kind of nice. It's mostly, I think, because it matches the I3, and they can move all together. And of course, he gets to carry the thread tracers, which can set up target locks. And in a perfect world, you got target locks hitting, and then double modified X-Wing shots going into your main target. Seems like a solid list. It is a simple idea, but it's got offensive modifications and defensive modifications, and that's what you need to really push your list over the edge.
This gives me an old like early 2.0 beef, like the rebel beef that was going around.
Well,
The spread damage.
we know, we talked about this particular pie a lot earlier. Bosk hates seeing this because Selfless happens before Bosk gets to split it. So this could definitely be a meta call with all the Bosks showing up. It does say in attack arc, so even though you got those high amount of attack dice with proton rockets, that's a tiny bullseye, so that's probably not going to happen. But proton torpedo carriers hate seeing this as well. But Bosk is really sad to see Selfless because his attack arc is a 180.
Yes, and to be clear, that means that if that critical damage goes on somebody else, that the way it works is because you're canceling out the original crit, Bosk's ability doesn't work. It just disappears. The crit comes from Selfless, not from Bosk, just in case somebody, rules that wrong at some point. All right, next we have Sammy Ulvinen. What do we got here, Ryan?
We have 5 Inquisitor TIE Advanced V1s, all with Foresight. I think Sammy has consistently brought this list in a few different events and has done well pretty often. Has that Foresight threat, they're I3, but it's like a bunch of snapshots out there. So before things get to take defensive actions, they might need to be worried about where the Foresight bullseye is pointed at, and those extra shots build up throughout the entire list. And they're also super defensive when they need to be with that 1 force and that white evade.
That's a solid ship. Pretty self-explanatory. Next, we move on to Daniel Vuchnik. Go ahead. Take it, Marcel.
All right. So Daniel Vuchnik flying a first order list at 196 points with Major Von Reg, Daredevil, Kylo, Extreme Maneuvers, and Recoil with Predator. So 2 silencers plus a Type B8. Recoil is 4, right? So it's a initiative 4, 5, and 6. And I think just by looking at this, I don't know how far down we are, but I would say almost every top list had an initiative 4 outside of the Barons. That's what it looks like. It was all I-4s or Barons so far. Or no, maybe not the Jedis. The Jedis, I guess.
Well, Jedis and Reds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Red X's, the Jedis, but they generally are partnered with something that's I4. Depends on if you mean if I4 was predominant in the list or if there's at least one ship that is I4.
At least one ship that's I4. Like I4 was, it was a popular initiative. It looks to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I4 was the part. I4 is where the party is at right now. So watch out. You got to plan for it. If you're not planning for it, you're gonna have a sad day. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We got a couple more lists. Don Walker. What do we got here?
All right, Don Walker's flying the Resistance. That's Poe with R4 astromech, overdrive thrusters. I assume the foils as well. Then Jessica Pava in the 270 with foils. Zizi Talo, it's the I5 A-Wing who gets free tokens after defending or attacking with proton rockets. And then C-3P Rose in the pod, being able to hand out those coordinates while still able to double modify her own dice pool. This is very familiar to what Carson's running in the XTC. What was but he's got
Lulo.
He's got Lulo. That's right. You have to be Carson to fly Lulo. So this is probably the list for everybody else looking to utilize that same archetype. I think it's very interesting. You got that good jousting squad with Rose and Pamba, have good defense and offense between both of them. Then you got essentially two different aces to kind of come in from different angles as well. I think it's going to be the new staple for Resistance in hyperspace and outside of it as well.
All right, and last but not least, we got Sebastian Demers bringing a Separatist list to the squad. We got DGS 047, which we'll go ahead and bring that up here in a second, with Zamweso crew, DRK probe droids, and the repulsor lift stabilizers. Then we have 3 Geonosian prototypes. 2 of them have sync laser cannons and repulsor stabilizers. And then we have General Grievous. Sorry, I said 2. I said 3 of those. There's only 2 Geonosian prototypes. They're built out the same. And then we have General Grievous, who we talked a little bit about earlier, with Kraken, Impervium plating, and Solus 1. Overall, that is a very solid list. The HMPs do give a lot of people trouble because of their maneuverability and how the side slip moves. Now, you did end up having DGS 47 with, if you're not familiar with, let's go ahead and read that ability. It says, after you perform an attack, if the defender is not in your front arc, you may acquire a lock on it. Then if the defender is in your bullseye, it gains a strain. So there was a couple of times, I think we had this list on stream, where the bullseye ability almost went off. But it just missed a couple of times. But that threat out there is really, really strong. And unless you have a way to take this thing off the board, you got to be careful just haphazardly shooting at it in the middle of the game. But overall, a really solid squad. Obviously made it to the top 16. And congratulations. So that's been our top 16 list. If you want to take a look at all the other lists, they are currently available to peruse at your leisure on List Juggler, and they are also available right now if you type !lists if you want to look at it. Now, before we wrap up this segment, I wanted to talk a little bit about some stats. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys questions. You answer, and chat, feel free to be a part of this. I'm going to ask, the first question is, who do you think was the most popular pilot? Okay, so most popular named pilot in each of the factions. All right, we'll go ahead and start with Scum. Starting with Scum. Marcel, what do you think?
Bosk.
That is incorrect. Go ahead.
Is it Fenn Rau?
It is 14 instances of Fenn Rau, followed by 12 bounty. Sorry, we're doing uniques, followed by Bosk at 10 instances. 10 instances of boss, and then after that we had Kanan Jarrus in the Hawk at 8 instances.
Oh, it's like they build their own little list.
They do. They all work together. Now, Ryan, since we got
there's a
go
lot
ahead.
of those 3. There's a lot of list of just those 3. So I imagine almost every Kanan was probably with Finrau and Bosk.
Now, when it comes to Separatists, I don't think we're going to be surprised that Zam was the most popular unique ship with 15 instances of it, followed by Django with 10. All right, so there was 5 instances where Zam came alone.
Was there ever a Django that did not have a Zam?
I don't have that information available, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Now, Ryan, what do you think about the First Order?
Kylo.
I mean, yeah, that one's a little bit easy. 11 instances. Who do you think comes in second?
Von Reg.
Yeah, Von Reg.
Yep, with 10 instances of Von Reg. All right, now, Will, Empire, number 1 named pilot.
Nash.
That's a good guess, but there was only 1 Nash.
Really?
Only
Okay.
1. Commandant Gorant was the most common with
makes sense.
4 of those.
There was 4?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
4 of them. The majority of Empire brought generics. All right. There's a lot. 43 total, and that includes multiple on the list. 43 total Barons of the Empire. So that gives you an idea of how that flipped there. Rebel Alliance, Marcel, most named pilot, and how many?
I think you're adding the how many, because how many rebels were there?
Total 14.
Yeah. 14. I would say Hera with 9.
14.
Every rebel list.
Every rebel list brought
that
Hera.
doesn't. So the numbers you put up above showed 12 rebel lists.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry, there was-
definitely a rebel list in the cut that had Hobby and 4 X-wings.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
then
don't.
that means there's an error somewhere in our counting. But
Somebody ran 5 Heras in one list.
there was a lot of Hera. Most of the rebel lists had Hera in it. Will, Resistance.
I'm going to go with Rose.
That is false. Jess Pava.
I was gonna say Jess Pava.
Really? Okay.
That's-
Yeah, she gets in the 4 T-70s. Yeah, that
And,
makes
and
sense.
she partners with Rose when Rose is around.
That makes sense.
And then Ryan, Galactic Republic.
I have 2 on my mind. I'm gonna actually go with N1 Annie.
N1 Annie, there was only 2 instances overall. Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Ada with 5.
It was either that or N1 Annie.
So there you go. A little bit of stats for you guys. I know you like your stats. There you go. Now, before we go today, I want to do some lightning round answering of a couple of questions of the week. We haven't got to them in a while, but I'm mostly caught up with my homework for my master's. I got 1 assignment I got to finish tonight, so I'm going to give us a little more time to answer some of these questions. All right. So Aram Fish, aka Andrew Goldbach, asks this question. He asks, "We know that Zam crew is undercosted on the on ships that can abuse it. People with wide arcs and crew, ordnance carrying, etc. We saw this with 3 YV666s making the cut this weekend, and also jump masters with Zam. However, ships with 90-degree arcs may not necessarily see as much versatility. When doing the points update, is there an argument for scaling Zam based on this versatility, like how they did with Snapshot with base sizes, or by Hate with base size, or Supernatural by pilot skill? What do you guys think about that? Zam with the number of arcs you can carry.
That's certainly interesting. I would think that the first would be how many red dice you have. So you would actually be cheaper. We saw DGS 47 would get a discount because he doesn't have a 3-dice weapon. But of course, though, he is a munitions carrier, though. So maybe that isn't just like a jump master. Maybe that isn't the route to go. Maybe it is what you're saying, how many arcs you have. But then again, the jump master, though, technically only has 1 arc.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it can equip cannons and torpedoes and things like that.
It'd be tough. It'd be tough because then you kind of have to price it per pilot, right? It'd be hard to, like, logistically, it'd be hard to do an overall. But I see where he's going, right? Like, we recognize that on Bosk, it's really good. On the fire sprays with a front and back arc, it's pretty good. I
would probably, if possible, we need to start pricing things by faction. So we can lump Protectorate Gleb in there as well. So he's more expensive in factions that can abuse him, just like Zam. Zam should be more expensive in Scum rather than in Separatist, where it's basically limited to what? The HMP Infiltrator and then not Django, right?
Yeah.
I guess there's generic bounty hunters. I guess.
Separatist racketeers.
Right. I would assume that you'd rather just get Zam pilot than Zam crew on your fire spray in Separatist.
I mean, we could try and do these, like, multiple costing things based on something. I see where it can be applied. It's just probably easier to just make sure that it's just not abusable on the highest, because I think no matter, it's going to be very rare you're going to see Zam be taken that much more on something, even though if it's like a point or two cheaper, maybe, but it's really, you got to cost it likely for the ships that are going to be the most effective with it. And I think besides the 180 on the YV, it is also because it can have a second crew slot and have something like Gamut Key to derive the token generation from turn over turn on top of Zam crew providing the lock and the extra attack on a platform like Bosk where crits can be extra damage.
Any thoughts on that, Marcel? Are you in agreement?
In Zam's particular case, I think that's just one of those cards where you, like Ryan said, you price it so that it's not abused on the best carriers, but the best carriers are multiple because, you'll never know who that best carrier is until somebody puts it on the table and it's like, oh, I never thought that would work so well right there. Basically, this is a free target lock and a free second shot, so it should be costed like a free target lock and a free second shot. So regardless of what platform, you can put it on Zuckuss. If Zuckuss, they give Zuckuss crew, throw it on Zuckuss, and it, it's still like, okay, now you get shot with 4 dice twice. It's never fun. It's never good. It's always good. It should always be expensive. Period.
All right. And our last question of the day is from Matt B, who asked, now that in-person play is slowly starting again, even though there won't be any quote-unquote big events until later, how much of a gap or difference will there be between the online meta and the real-life meta? Obviously, all players have access to everything online, but it can be very different when playing live, of course. Always in motion, the meta is. So I'm going to comment on that here for a little bit. I've always said, while it's true that everybody has access to everything online, don't fool yourself into thinking that somebody who wants to fly, 5 Barons of the Empire, 6 Barons of the Empire, that they can't get their hands on them. Because most people are part of a squad of people. And if Marcel, Will, Ryan, or any of my Gold Squadron local people hit me up and they're like, Dion, I need these ships for a tournament, I just give it to them. I wouldn't question. Like, here you go, right? People can borrow, and I think that there is that perception. I know that most of us buy only like 2 or maybe 3 of something, but you know, you definitely have options there. So I don't think there would be a huge shift. You know what I'm actually more curious of? What I'm more curious of is the level of play. Because people haven't been head simming the game. But that's not the question. We'll worry about that in a minute. Marcel, you seem to be a dissenting opinion.
Yeah, if I heard you right, you say you don't think there's going to be that big of a difference in what's being played on TTS and what will be played on a table, because people have access to all the ships. I'm going to disagree with that. I think there's going to be a huge meta shift, and it is going to be driven by the simplicity of TTS versus the complexity of moving ships on a physical table. Just you Goran strikers and Goran. Can you imagine every turn saying, when you're here, you can say bump over, bump over, bump over, bump over. That is a 18-20 second thing, 15 seconds on turn 1 just to get them moving forward. But on a table, that 15 seconds of just click 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 turns into a 5-minute move. And that is an example of where I'm saying you're going to get a lot of these 6, 7, 8 ship builds to not be there, not just because the people are going to have less access to them, but also because they're just not that much fun. I mean, for lack of a better word, I don't want to be playing a one-player game of bump, move, bump, move, bump, move, and then 45 minutes into it, then I'll, okay, let's start shooting each other. Also, sorry, Ryan. Also, the pace of play being slower benefits certain lists more than it benefits others. So the aces that basically have to hit and hide will have to hide for a much shorter period of time, because in TTS right now that ace is being chased for 9 or 10 turns, where in real life that ace will just be chased for maybe 2 or 3 turns and the game will be over.
So your point about the Goron strikers, I'd say even in TTS, if you have someone who's doing that bump in like the first few turns, like that's not necessary. Like I would straight call out that player, like, why are you doing this? Like you're directly. So I mean, I can understand maybe like the first turn you're trying to slow down your movement because strikers innately move fast, right? There are probably other better ways to do it, but if they're doing that bump thing every single turn, that seems like directly and purposely trying to slow down the game so that they know that either one, their final salvo is better, or two, because of their token stack capability, they know that the first engagement is going to favor them in most cases anyway. Like, and there's no game state reason to be doing that turn over turn before the first engagement is likely to happen.
But it's think about it this way. It is no different than a what are the first order ships? The 4 dice one, the Upsilon. It's no different than an Upsilon being parked and hitting a stop, and then turn 2 a ship goes in, hits it, and then turn 3 it takes off. That's 3 turns of figuring out where your opponent's going while your other ship is, Kylo is doing something, right? So that's 3 turns of figuring out your opponent. If you do 3 turns of figuring out your opponent with something like a striker list, to slow play so you can figure out where they're going, those 3 turns for that Upsilon takes a minute a turn, 45 seconds a turn. For the other one, it'll take 5 minutes a turn. So they are playing slower, and they are doing that for a reason. But they're actually just taking the same number of turns. They're taking 3 rounds to figure that out, the same as that Upsilon parked in the corner for 3 rounds, which is allowed. You can stop, park, bump, stop, go. and that's typically been allowed.
So while I could see that with that to maintain the Upsilon's arc, I think if you measure it out, there's very little difference between doing a one straight aileron, one straight striker, than doing a one bump, two hop over. Like the actual distance traveled isn't that, I don't believe is that different to affect like you holding yourself back to where you want to commit into the game though. I think that just mechanically as you're correctly pointing out is an issue because of the time taken to do all those bumps in real life play.
Yeah, and we're using strikers as an extreme example, and I get it, but even without strikers, if you're moving 6 barons, barrel rolling, 6 barons, barrel rolling every turn, TTS is again 40 seconds. Table time is 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So that's what I'm saying. I think that the pace of play, how boring it is for some people to play 6, 7, 8 ships for 5, 6 rounds in a row. Like I've tried it before. I do not bring it to an in-person tournament. No, nothing over 4, maybe 5 ships ever again, because it just takes forever and it's boring, and you have to carry everything around, and you're walking around like this. It's just difficult.
All right, and what do you think, Will?
While you guys are focusing on movement, my mind immediately goes to bullseye effects. You know how hard it is to actually measure bullseye effects in real life, especially like range 3 or so, or like through multiple ships to try to find out if DGS actually has bullseye on your ship to give it a string. It is in real life frustrating to be 100% accurate with that. I think it's one of the advantages early on Nantex had with online plays. You just click, are you in my bullseye? Nope. Okay, we'll shoot my regular gun then. If you had to get your little range ruler out every single time you had to find out if a ship was in your bullseye with 6 Nantex, it would slow the game down. Same thing with like the Inquisitor Prockets. A lot of times it's not obvious that you are in that ship's bullseye or not. Foresight as well. Oh my god, every time you move a ship, your opponent gets to measure like 5 bullseyes, and it has to do so very accurately. I think that is not that we won't see those lists, because I think we'll still probably see those lists, but the time it takes and the accuracy of those bullseye checks is going to be much more difficult.
I wonder.
And also,
go ahead.
I would like to just if you're going to play thermal detonators and you plan to drop both bombs, please drop the 2 straight one first and then the 1 straight, because if you drop the 1 straight first, then you got to bend that 2 straight over top and try and keep that 1 straight one you just put on in position exactly where it should be, because you got to measure from that to see who does damage. Please drop the 2 straight first.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that discussion. I am curious to see what ends up happening. We'll know Lone Star Open is the next event that that GSP will be at in person. Will's going to be taking the helm there. I'm going to be busy graduating from my master's degree program, but maybe on Sunday I'll call in or something. We'll try. I gotta get we'll figure something out, Will, because I'm graduating on Saturday, not on Sunday. But I don't know. Maybe Mrs. GSP will want to do something. I don't know.
Just fly down for Sunday. It'll be okay.
Just fly down for Sunday. What do you guys, patrons? What do you guys think? Is that a good use of your guys' money? You let me know. A one day trip, graduate. Dun, 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 dun. I gotta go. Gotta catch a flight.
Might opt for the wife points if it were me.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking too. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Gold Squadron Podcast. Thank you to everybody who participated in the Lamu qualifier, who watched. It was awesome. Remember, get signed up for Dagobah. It is an extended event, and it is happening during the Dublin, Ireland time zone. I know quite a few people have preferred playing in an event that they would essentially be playing at night and through the morning because their like families are asleep or something like that. Or if you're a single person and you don't got anything to do on the weekend, stay up. What's gonna hurt about it? Let's play some X-Wing. Let's hang out and have a good time. So thank you again so much for having a what am I trying to say? Having a good day was what I was about to say. Sorry, I'm tired.
You're welcome, Dion.
I'm really
You're welcome.
Thank you for having a good day. Be smart, be safe. Gold Squadron out.